Welcome, everyone. We are now going into a Grants Online webinar session where we're going to go through the steps that are involved in creating a competitive RFA and its associated Notice of Funding Opportunity, NOFO. RFA, again, is Request for Application, and NOFO is Notice of Funding Opportunity. In the competitive world, you're creating a much more involved, much more detailed document that will be posted at Grants.gov for the eligible applicants to review and determine if they want to submit a grant application. So I'm going to start off by logging in as a Federal Program Officer, and this is the one that I use for training. And we are back to our advisory screen when we log into Grants Online. We're back to using the RFA tab because we're going to start creating an RFA. Again, it's the Request for Application document in Grants Online. And this time, we're going to keep the radio button defaulted to competitive. That's where it comes in as, and we're going to keep it on competitive. And we are going to create new from scratch so that we can see each of the data fields that we need to fill out. Again, if you already have a competitive RFA in the system from a previous announcement, you can use that as a template and use Create New from Existing. For the purposes of this webinar, we're going to do Create New from scratch. Okay, let's give it a name. Instead of universal, this is going to be competitive. Let's see, instructor, competitive. Okay, need to spell it right. Have my T in there. Oh, all right. Competitive RFA, December 2019 class. Okay, fiscal year is 2020. The anticipated publication date. You don't really know exactly when it's going to be published. You can, especially if it's not that far out. So this is just an estimate of the time you think it's going to get posted at Grants.gov. Just for the purposes of class, we usually use just the next day. But of course, you're going to use a more realistic date when you're doing an actual one. Okay? So for the training, we're just going to do the next day. Here's our program office that we use for training, OCPO, which is underneath the GOT, Grants Online Training Line Office, in our training environment for Grants Online. And I use our Student 00 account for the instructor as the Federal Program Officer. And CFDA number, we use 11.998 in training. That one is not used currently in production. Save. Okay, the data that we just put in on the previous screen gets repeated on this screen. At this point, the system has generated a federal funding opportunity number. There is a pattern to that number. The first part is the Bureau. The next section is the Line Office, Grants Online Training. The third section is the Program Office, One Commerce Program Office. The fourth section is the fiscal year, and then the last 7 digits are system generated to make this particular number unique. We're going to go down through the screen, and we're going to find where we have asterisks, and those are the ones we're going to key in on as we're filling in this particular screen. So the first asterisk that doesn't have data is the anticipated funding amount. This is the funding amount for the entire announcement. So if you have multiple competitions that are being announced with this one NOFO, then you want to add up all of the anticipated funding from all of the competitions and put that here. For the purposes of training, we're just going to have one competition associated with this particular RFA and NOFO. So we're going to make this, we're going to make this a $10 million anticipated funding amount. So with that amount, we need to let the system know about the minimum and the maximum awards that are going to be made, the amounts that are going to be made on the award. So the smallest award may be $10,000, with the largest award being $1 million. Okay? And let's say we anticipate a minimum of 10 awards coming out of this competition and a maximum of 20. So no matter how many number of applications come in, we anticipate that we're going to make between 10 and 20 awards on this particular announcement. All right, let's keep going. Selected federal addresses. This is the address of the program office that is running the competition. So click on Add Edit and find the name of your program office or the acronym. We do have the acronym as a part of the name in the system, so you can use the acronym. Once you find it, you click on the check mark right there in front of the name and click Add to RFA. If this competition is being run together in cooperation with another program office, you can actually search for a second address and add it also. For class, we're just going to add one. So now we have our federal address for our program office. Now we have to select the person who is going to be the point of contact in case the applicants have any questions from the federal program office. So we have to put in the name of the person who would be answering those questions. And so I'm going to go ahead and put in the name associated with the account that I'm currently using for this training exercise. Okay, so now we have the federal addresses and we have the point of contact. Let's keep going, and we need to select one of your Bureau's mission goals. Since I'm logged in as a NOAA user in the NOAA environment, I selected one of NOAA's mission goals. Now the next section, when it talks about program elements and funding priorities, this section relates to the various breakdown of, if you look at the entire grant program, the various projects that are going to be funded using this particular opportunity announcement. There could be a one-to-one between the program elements and the competition, or there could be a many-to-one. So we're going to just add in a couple, and if you need to know more about what this particular aspect of the RFA is referring to, I'm going to advise you to contact your own program managers, and they can help you understand what this section is about. But for now, we're going to put in a couple of program elements. Now notice that the only thing that is actually required is a name, but you can also use a label with that name or not, and you can also put in a description. So we're just going to keep it very simple. The label allows you to have a cleaner report when reports are generated, because these become report column headings. And so if the name is a long name, it will make the column heading very compressed if you have a lot of information in the name. And a label just makes it cleaner. So we're going to say this is label A, and program element with a label. I'm not going to put a description in. Save. And then I'm going to add new. And I'm not going to give it a label. I'm going to put in a program element without a label and click save. So now I have two program elements on my opportunity announcement. Done. One thing I do want to emphasize is the information that we're putting in on the screen now is not actually being transferred into the NOFO, or the Notice of Funding Opportunity. That's going to be done separately. The information that we're putting on the screen now are data fields in the database that can be used for reporting later on as needed. So at this point, I've got all of the required data on this first screen. I'm going to click Save to make sure I've filled in all of the required data fields. And now I'm going to put in the details for my competition. So I'm going to click Add New. System already pulled over the name of the RFA and just duplicated for the competition name. I'm going to change it. I'll say Webinar Only Competition 1. Just to remind you that you can put more than one competition on a particular RFA. Fiscal year 2020. This is a group competition type. The difference between group and individual qualification is that a group competition, which for NOAA, 99% of our competitions are group competitions, and that means that we're going to have one due date. All of the applications are due in by that same due date, and only after all of the applications come in will we start doing our application reviews and comparing them against our set of criteria, and they're going to be competing with each other for the funds that we have available for this particular competition. Individual qualification is a little bit different. There's not necessarily one date that they all have to be in by, and they're not being compared, competing against each other. They're only competing against the qualifications that have been set up for this particular competition. So for NOAA, we have something called a broad area announcement. That is set up as an individual qualification. Most of the other competitions are set up as a group competition type. All right, let me keep going. We already have the assigned program office, but we have to select which person in that office is going to run this competition. So I'm going to select the user that I'm logged in as, and this will become the competition manager. And then save. All right, the data is transferred to the next screen where we have more details that we have to start filling in. The first thing at the top is who is our selecting official. This is the person whose name is going to go into the official selection memo once we have made our decisions as to which applications are going to get funded versus the ones that are not. Whoever puts their name on that final selection package, that is our selecting official. Now, if that person does not have a Grants Online account, there may be somebody else in Grants Online that is acting in proxy for them. It will be the proxy person's name that will be available for that drop-down. Okay. At this point, the next section that has an asterisk is the anticipated federal funding for the competition. Again, it's anticipated. The system does not hold you to these numbers. But just like before on the previous screen, we had the anticipated federal funding for the entire RFA. Now we have to break it down for each competition that's a component of this particular RFA. Since it's one-to-one, then these numbers should match the RFA numbers. So we'll say a minimum of 10,000 and a maximum of 10,000. Because it's going to be the same. Actually, we can say a minimum. I think that we did a million. I'm sorry, 10 million. A million and 10 million, right? 1, 2, 3. $1 million, and $10 million. Okay. Let's keep going. The anticipated competition schedule. Grants Online currently does not have any real functionality to process pre-applications or letters of intent. There was some initial desire to put that type of functionality in the system way back in the beginning when Grants Online was first built, but it was never fleshed out in the system. So there is no pre-application functionality. However, there are some program offices that use the system to process their pre-applications or their pre-proposals by creating two separate competitions. They will have one competition for the pre-application process and then another competition for the application process. So that's one way it can be done. For now, we're going to ignore the top line that has no asterisk for pre-application, and we're going to just focus in on the full application. We need to let the system know when the applications are due, and we have two ways of letting it know that. We can either put a hard due date with the month, day, year, or we could say it's a certain number of days after that RFA has been posted at Grants.gov. Again, Grants.gov is the federal system hosted by Health and Human Services where all of the federal grant opportunities are posted. If you don't know exactly when it's going to be posted, but you have a tight window and you want it to be posted within, within a certain number of days, you want your applications due. For instance, 45 or 60 days, you can just put that 45 or 60 in this box right here, and whoever posts the application due, the notice of funding opportunity, whoever posts it will calculate from the date that they actually posted at Grants.gov, they will go out whatever number that you have here and put that as the application due date. Just for the purposes of class, we're just going to put one day, but you have to check with your own program office to determine what dates are feasible for your particular RFA. Now, for the time, I'm putting in 11:59, and that is because at Grants.gov, applications are allowed to come through to the federal agency up until 11:59 on the closing date of whatever that announcement has. So if that announcement closes on, for instance, the end of the year, 12/31, at 11:59, it allows all of the applications all the way up to the end of the year to come through. If your announcement says, our announcement closes at 5 p.m., you will have to make sure that as the applications come in, anything that comes in after 5 p.m. should get rejected if your announcement says they're due by 5 p.m. So you need to check with your lawyers to determine what kind of language you can put into your notice of funding opportunity to allow applications to come in for the electronic way versus the paper way. There are some agencies that are just only allowing the applications to come in through Grants.gov. And so in those cases, they don't have to worry about two different time frames. But if you have, if you're allowing paper to come in, then please remember those applications have to be time-stamped when they come into the office, especially for a competition, so that you will know they came in time based on whatever dates and times that you have in your NOFO. Okay, so that's all about the time, but the time is very important. Anticipated award date. So this is a virtual date. You just put in a number, and that number is the number of days after the application is due. In NOAA, there is sort of a milestone that And after an application is due, the program office has 90 days to do their part of the application processing, and then the grants office has another 90 days to do their processing, giving it a full 180 days from the time the application is due to the time we will possibly get that award out the door. So you need to know, if you're not in NOAA, what the schedule is for your own bureau, so you'll know what number of days to put in here. All right. The next section, right here where you have an asterisk, says the criteria type that are going to be used when you review your applications, the review criteria type. Most of the time, we're doing just agency standard criteria. In some cases, there may be fellowships, and the criteria is slightly different, and there is a guidance document here that will help you understand the difference. Okay? The next section is application routing. And application routing will indicate to the system who gets the applications when they come in from Grants.gov or when they're entered using the input paper application feature. In a previous webinar, we talked about workload routing, which is a very simple way of just saying the applications are just going to come into a particular program officer within that program office. For this particular webinar, we're going to go over state routing. It's a little bit more involved than workload routing. So let me click on state routing and the link for view/edit. For state routing, basically what we're doing is we are creating groups of states, and then once we create those groups of states, for every group of state, we have one or more federal program officers assigned to that group so that you can route your applications geographically by the states that they come in to a particular program office. That's the main thing that you're using the state routing for. So I'm just going to set up a few groups. Let's click on Add New, and I'm just going to put our foreign and APO groups into one set of groups. I'm going to call this State Group 1, and I'm going to say anything that comes in to that group will be processed by this group of federal program officers in my office. Save, and now I'm going to add a new group in. And let's now say this is going to be the A's through the J's, or a little further. Let's go through the M's. Okay, so states A through M. Move those over here. That'll be state group 2. And we're just going to give one user any applications that come through on that group of states. And then let's make one more group. Everything else will be in our third group. So I'm going to click the top. I'm going to scroll all the way down to the bottom. I'm going to use my Shift key with my click, highlight everything, and push it over. And now we're going to say that these users here will process those applications that come in those states. Oops, we have to give it a name. I'm sorry, group 3. And now we got to do this again. Push these over and select some federal program officers to process that group of states. So now we have all of our states in a group, and we have them all assigned to a particular one or more program officers. And here is how it looks on the main screen. For groups 1 and 3, since we have more than one federal program officer assigned to a state group, then the system will just go through and keep going through in a round-robin fashion as the applications are coming in, assigning them to the federal program officers in that group. For state group 2, since there's only one person, everything will be sent to that one person. Okay. Next section, we have to identify what forms are going to be in the application package that the recipient has to submit. So I'm going to click on the View/Edit link. And on this page, I have to select a form family. Actually, even though we have 4 options in the drop-down, there are actually only 2 built into Grants Online. It's the SF424, which is the regular set of forms, and then we have R&R, which is the set of forms that are associated with the research and related community. R&R means research and related. So if your announcement is for research projects, then you can use this R&R options here. But for class, we're going to use the top one. And in that form family are a set of templates that can be used to indicate which set of forms we need our applicants to use when they are submitting their application. For class, I'm going to check the last one. And in that particular template, we have a set of forms that are mandatory and then a couple others that are optional. Actually, mandatory and optional don't mean that the applicants get to choose whether or not to send the optional, but it means that Grants.gov will only enforce having the mandatory forms in the package. The optional forms are not going to be enforced by Grants.gov, and that's the difference between mandatory and optional. Okay? If you actually want them to submit all of those forms, then there's going to be language in your NOFO that tells them that they need to submit all of the forms. There will be no attachment on this page because the instructions to the applicant are in the form of the NOFO, which we're going to build in a few minutes. So at this point, we're going to click Save and Return to Main. Okay, we are getting through our page for the competition. We've got 2 more sections to fill in. This next section is called Specific Award Conditions, and this allows you to create a specific award condition for any award that's going to be created from the application submitted to this RFA. An example would be if all of your awards are going to result in some kind of a publication, then you may want a logo on that publication for your bureau. Since we're doing this under the NOAA Bureau, we're going to say we want all of the publications to apply a NOAA logo on the cover sheet of the publication. This allows us to create this condition right here on the RFA. The system will then apply it to any application that gets attached to this RFA when it gets processed for an award. So let's go ahead and click View/Edit. And we're going to create from scratch. We're going to say this is called NOAA logo required. And then we're going to put something in the description. On all publications must display a NOAA logo on the cover sheet. I will say all publications resulting from this grant award from this grant project must display a NOAA logo on the cover sheet. All right, we're going to click Save and Done. And we now have a specific award condition that will be applied to all of the awards that are made underneath this RFA. Click Done, and you see it on the main screen. All right, we have one last section to fill out on this particular RFA before we can begin to create the NOFO, which is the Notice of Funding Opportunity. We are going to set up our review event, and that is going to be the section that we use the special review module in Grants Online to do our application reviews once the applications come in. So let's click Add New, and we're going to give our review event a name. You can either do an independent individual merit review. That is the type when you're sending out, for each application, you have to send them to 3 subject matter experts for their reviews. They will submit them back, independent reviews, and then you will use those to score the applications. You can also do panels. There's 2 types of panels, consensus panel and non-consensus panel. Most of the time in NOAA, if you're not doing an independent merit review, you'll do a non-consensus panel. In some cases, you do both. You start off with the independent merit review, and then you might have a second review event of a panel. We're only going to do 1 review event for the purpose of training. We're going to click this and save. And on the screen, we're going to define how our review is going to be set up for our reviewers. So we're going to say we actually want to use Grants Online for the review event. And so you click the top radio button that says the reviews are assigned and completed using Grants Online. Notice there is an option to do the reviews outside of Grants Online. That's up to your particular organization as to how you would like to do it. If you do the review events outside of Grants Online, then you will be attaching all of your scores and comments that you get back from your reviewers. If you do it inside of Grants Online, the scores and comments are already in the system, in the database, and can be generated from the system. All right, scored criteria. There's several different types. This is not a section where we're going to really delve deep into a review event. We're just going to do a quick one so that we can show you the basics. But this is a very complex part of Grants Online, so we're not going to get deep into it. We're going to make it easy. We're going to say %. We're going to say it's going to be a mean summary score determination, and no not scored criteria. Bonus points does not really work, so you can ignore this section in Grants Online for the bonus points. That section does not work in the review event. All right, anticipated review start and end dates. Again, they are anticipated. You're not held to these dates, but you do have to put some dates in there. So we're going to put in a couple of dates. We'll say 12/10 to 12/17. Or maybe just 12/10 to 12/11. How's that? Quick review event, 1 day. Of course, that's not realistic, but just for class, we're going to do it that way. Let's click Save at the bottom. And we've got a few warnings and error messages at the top. I did anticipate that. I wanted to get the data that we already have on the screen saved before we continue to put the rest of the data on the screen. So now you have a question about whether or not you're going to allow your reviewers to upload comments, okay, as an attached file. We're going to keep it as yes. We're going to allow them to upload separate comments as an attached file. Please note that anything that's an attachment will not be able to be used in any report. So any data that you want in a report cannot be in an attachment. Now we're going to add our agency standard criteria. And this picks up for NOAA a set of 7 criteria, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 criteria that are set up by default for NOAA. If you want to remove or modify any of these criteria, you would need to talk to the lawyers in the Federal Assistance Law Division, also known as FALD, before you make any changes to these criteria, because these are the NOAA standard criteria that are used to evaluate applications. Okay, for each one of these criteria, we have to set it up so that the weighting of the scores come out to be 100 once we do them all. So let's make it real easy. We're going to do a couple of 20s and then some 25s to make it all add up properly. A couple of 25s, I'm sorry, and then some 20s. We'll just make it all add up to 100. So these are the different permutations and combinations that you have for every criteria. The review of comments can be required, not required, or not allowed. The review of scores could be required or not required. You do not have a not allowed option for the score. Okay? So for the first one, we're going to keep it required and not required. We'll allow the minimum score to be 0, maximum to be 20. And save. You can change the description if you want. You can even change the criteria name, but again, you're going to need to talk with the lawyers if you're going to do that. Okay, so we have the first one on here. Let's do the next one. And we're just going to make it real simple. I'm going to make this 20 again. We are going to change the review of comments to not required and save. Let's do the next one. We're going to make the review of comments not allowed and then save. That's 20%. Save. Okay, got 3 more to go. So far we're up to 60 on our weighting. It has to add up to 100. So we'll do a couple of 15s and a 10. Let's add this, project cost. This time we're going to make the comments not required and the score not required. Okay, so I'll make this 15%. Save. And edit this one. We're going to make the comments not allowed and the score not required. I'm just trying to do a lot of different combinations so that you can see there's a lot of flexibility in the system. Save. All right. Let's do the last one. Edit. And we'll just keep it as a default, required and required. And I'm going to put in another 15%. Now, I'm doing this on purpose because I know it's going to go over 100%. If I try to save this, the system catches it, so it won't allow you to put in more than 100% if you select percentage. Okay? So let's go ahead and edit this last one. Make it 10. Let's see what happens this time. Got 3 20s, that's 60. We got 2 15s, that's another 30, which is 90, and 10 should be 100. So let's click Save again, and we don't have any error messages. So we've got our review event set up. I'm going to click Save and return to main. And at this point, we are ready to start on our NOFO, our Notice of Funding Opportunity. So, in order to get started on that, we need to navigate back to our RFA. So from this page, which says Independent Merit Review, we're going to scroll down to the bottom of the screen and click on the RFA tab. That just kind of lets you know how everything is associated with each other. The competition and the RFA and the merit review are all associated with each other on the screen. We now have an option to create the Notice of Funding Opportunity. That wasn't there before we created the competition. We had to create the competition first. Create the Notice of Funding Opportunity and submit. How are we doing? Any questions as we're going so far? No questions so far. Okay, I know we're going through a lot of information, so that's one of the reasons why we're recording this, so that you can go back and review it as needed. On this page, you will see an outline. And basically this outline is the outline that is that you should use when you are creating a notice of funding opportunity to be posted at Grants.gov. Okay? Each of these links here is a section of the outline. When you first come to the page, it says empty on each one. As you start filling in these sections, it'll give you a check mark to let you know you filled it in. So for instance, for dates, if you put some information here, I'm just going to put info, just put some characters in this box. Okay? Go down and click Save. You now have a green check mark to let you know that you have put something into that box. However, if you want to put some realistic language, because you're building now an opportunity notice of funding opportunity that is going to be reviewed by the general public so they'll know if they can apply for this opportunity and what all of the requirements are. So we need to put language into each of these boxes that can be understood by our proposed applicants or potential applicants to this particular grant program. So in order to get the language that you want to possibly use, there's a couple of things you can do. One is you can find another NOFO that's already in Grants Online, and you can download it and open it up and copy and paste the data from each section of that NOFO into this new one that you're creating. Okay? And so in order to do that, you would actually have to go back to the RFA tab and search for an RFA to find the one that you want to use, and then you would download the NOFO and copy and paste. The other option that you have, or one other option, is to use the guidance document that we have built into the system. It is sort of old, but it's still useful. So if you click on guidance document, it opens up a new tab, and it actually has the same outline on it, and for each section, if you click on it, it goes down to an area that describes that section and gives you lots of examples of language that has been used on past opportunities that you can possibly copy and paste and then massage it to fit your particular funding opportunity announcement. One of the things you can do is you can actually, if you open up the guidance document in a new window, you can put it into another monitor, or you can, if you're using one monitor, split your screen on your monitor and have your guidance document on one side and your Grants Online on the other side, and then you can go through here and find the section you want to fill in. So let's go to dates here, and now here's our guidance document about dates, and here's some published examples that have been used in the past. You can then copy and paste from the guidance document, open up the blue box, and paste it in here. And then you would change the dates. So let's say December. Okay, and it'll be 2019. And it says must be received. These are the pre-applications. Okay, by a particular date in December, and then maybe the final applications are due in March, we'll say 2020. Okay, so if you copy and paste from another announcement or from the guidance document, be sure that you are careful about updating dates and any other pertinent information to make it relevant to this particular announcement. Once you've done that, click Save, and you have some data in this outline. And then you would just do that for all of the sections. I'll do a couple more. Let's go to Program Objectives, and let's go into our guidance document and find Program Objectives. Let's find an example right here. Copy and paste. And I'm not going to change the language, but of course you would need to actually change it to make it relevant for what you're doing. Save. So now we have a couple of check marks. And as you're going down the list, you want to basically fill in all of your sections of your NOFO. Of course, you can do it outside of Grants Online, pass it around amongst the people that need to review it. Once you've done it outside of Grants Online and possibly a Word document, then you would still need to come back here and use that to copy and paste into Grants Online. If you're a NOAA. Some of the other bureaus don't do it exactly the same way, but right now this training is going to be geared towards the NOAA users and how the NOAA process is, and that is what the NOAA process is, to put the data into each of these blue boxes. Once you've got that done, at the bottom, there's a link to look at the NOFO as it is being generated. Once you click on it, the system provides a nice table of contents, and then as you're going through it, you will see that as you're adding data, here's this section on dates. So here's some data that we put in on dates. We didn't put anything under funding opportunity description, so it's blank. And then as we go down some more, here's the data that we put in program objective. So there's data there. And then everything else is blank because we didn't fill anything else in. So you can generate the NOFO as needed. I'm going to close this out. But you can generate it as you're building it to see what it's looking like as you are entering data into each section. Once the data has been entered into each section, it'll be time now to start routing this through the approval workflow. Now let's look at our process map, because it's a little bit different from the, and I'm going to close this out and give us a full screen. Wrong one. Close this one. We want the, process map here. Make it a full screen. And we want to, here's the competitive process map. This is what we're doing right here. So what we've done so far, we added all of those data fields in when we were creating the RFA, and then we've got a bunch more data fields that we entered when we created the NOFO. We are now ready to start the routing slip for the NOFO. So notice the difference between the competitive RFA and the universal. The universal has no NOFO. There's no announcement that we add. So the workflow is on the RFA. Whereas for the competitive process, the workflow is on the NOFO. It's not on the RFA. So we're going to do a NOFO routing slip. Okay? So let's go down here. Look at our routing slip, and it's several different entities that have to review this NOFO before it gets posted at Grants.gov. Again, let's look at our process map, and you see that it'll start with the assigned program officer. It'll move from that person to any optional reviewers that you may add in to review the announcement. After that, it'll go to the grant specialist to do their review from a grants management perspective. It then goes on to the lawyers. In this case, it goes to the Federal Assistance Law Division. That's what FALD means, Federal Assistance Law Division. And that is in the Department of Commerce, where the lawyers are that oversee our grant processes. And then after the lawyers review it and everything is clear, it goes on to be posted at Grants.gov to the person that has the role of RFA publisher. So, let's get going. We're going to make I'm going to make myself the assigned program officer, so I already have it set up that way. I'm not going to put in anything for optional reviewer just for the sake of time, but I can add anybody else who has a Grants Online account in my office. Those people can be added as optional reviewers if needed. From there, I'll go to the grant specialist, to the lawyers, and then to the person who's going to post at Grants.gov. So we're going to be logging in and logging out of each of these users as we get this through the workflow. So let's start our workflow. And since I am the first person in the workflow, it went to me as the assigned program officer. I now can approve it and send it on its way to the next person in the workflow. Let's look at our process map and where did it go? It went from the assigned program officer. I had no optional reviewer, so it went to the grant specialist. So I'm going to log off of Grants Online and log in as the grant specialist. And that's this user here that we use in training. Okay, let's see if we have a task. And we do. There's a task that has come in today. Notice there's some other tasks in here from some previous classes, but this is the one that just came in today. Here is our competitive webinar only NOFO, Notice of Funding Opportunity. So we're going to click on View, and we're going to say we did our review. Here's the opportunity to look at the NOFO details and the RFA details. Once they've looked at it, hopefully they're going to click Approve and send it on its way, so it is no longer in the box of the grant specialist. Log off. We're going to log in as a lawyer. And let's check and see if we have an, here we go, we have a task in the inbox of the lawyer. Again, there's an FFO, Notice of Funding Opportunity. Notice that there's no date in this particular inbox for this user because they haven't set it up with a date. Let's go ahead and put a date in. How do we do that? Back to Account Management. We're going to do My Preferences. We're going to skip the top part and we're going to go down to Tax Preferences. And we want to see the task receive date. So we're going to click on that, add it to our box. We're going to go up here and put it at the beginning of the line so that we can see when that task was received. We're going to add an RFA name. So this is just a way to customize your inbox so that you can see the data fields you want to see. All right, I'm going to go back to Inbox and Tasks. And now I can see this particular task did come in today. This is the one I just sent. And this is the RFA that it was on. So I'm going to click on View. I'm logged in as the lawyer. And I'm going to clear that NOFO. Of course, they're not going to just do that. They're going to review it first. But for training, we just want to move it through the workflow. And so it's now cleared. All right. We are almost done with this process map. It's been cleared by FALD. We just need to go get it posted at Grants.gov. The RFA publisher is back with this person, the grant specialist. So we're going to log back in as that person. Noah GS, GLT. Okay. And here's their task to publish it at Grants.gov. So they're going to click on View. They're, of course, going to view the details so they can see what they're going to put in. And once they have the data, they're going to manually key the information into Grants.gov. They're going to download your funding opportunity, and they're going to upload it as an attachment to your announcement at Grants.gov. Once they have completed the whole process, they're going to go back into Grants Online and say it has been posted. And now we have an announcement at Grants.gov that our public can go in, they can find it, and then they can apply to this particular grant opportunity. So that's the end of this particular webinar. We're going to stop this one here, and we will be creating some more webinars to help you with other parts of the Grants Online process. Thank you very much.